over on Route 4A on the Lebanon line. I live kind of set back up on Shaken Mountain a little bit. Beautiful, beautiful place. Been there. I'm happy as a clam. It's beautiful.
I'm Lee Davis. I've been in Enfield probably 40-some years. Moved here from Maine. Lived on George Hill for about 30 years. Used to ride my horse over the whole area there. Beautiful. But yeah, I now live on Lock Haven and retired and very happy.
Wonderful.
Shirley Green. I'm been in Enfield. Well, I was part-time until 2000 from the 60s. Seasonal residence. And now I live here permanently, and it's the best move we ever made.
Ben Morris, town manager. Been town manager since January. New resident.
Yeah.
Whitney Banker, I am the recording secretary.
Okay. My name's Peter Tabor, and I'm the reason that you're all here today. We're going to talk about my project on George Hill Road. And with me is Scott Williams. He's a civil engineer. He can tell about himself.
Yeah, I work with Pathways Consulting. I've been with Pathways for about 15 years. Been doing wetland permitting and this sort of development permitting for the entire time I've been in New Hampshire, Vermont. And so this is not new to me. And I actually have worked with the town of Enfield for quite a few years as kind of the town engineer a few years ago. But I think a lot of the commission members have changed since then. So that was mostly with the planning commission. So
One other
be here.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm all set.
Okay. One other piece of business I just wanted to cover. We won't move to approve our meeting minutes from the last meeting tonight. We'll delay those to our next regular meeting.
Okay.
And Ed?
Yep.
Ed would like to.
I'll just kind of introduce, I know there was a little bit of confusion about why this meeting was happening, and really what happened, we had a few procedural issues the first time we talked. One of the major ones was the fact that this was warned as Zoom. Peter lives a distance away, and he was all prepared to be on that Zoom meeting and to discuss his project with you guys, and Zoom didn't happen that night. He wasn't able to represent himself, and it'd be right to let him be able to present his project.
Yep.
The second thing we had, and I had talked to you guys before, was with Dr. Tice being in a butter with a parcel that he owns per town policy, he should have recused himself from the discussion. That's the reason he's decided not to be here tonight. He could have attended as public as an abutter, but he decided not to keep it as clean as possible. So we're looking at that, and then we want to listen to Peter's discussion and what he's doing in his project. I do have a copy of the letter with some comments from Mr. Tabor. If we need to go through that, we'll go through that, and then we want the commission to be able to look through the letter, listen to what they have said tonight, what's going on. And either we can reconfirm that the Conservation Commission stands behind the entirety of the letter, or if there's portions of the letter that maybe there's more information or something that we don't, then we may draft a secondary letter to follow up letter. But that's really the purpose of this meeting. And that, if it's okay with Shirley, I turn it over to Peter and Scott to present their project.
Thank you. Just to accentuate a few other points that Ed brought up, in addition to Dr. Tice chairing the meeting when he shouldn't have, he wrote the letter unilaterally. As far as I can see, there's no record that the letter was actually voted upon. And most charitably, that letter can be described as poisonous. It's filled with lots of lies, complete inaccuracies. So one of the things that I'd like to do is have a new letter written to the New Hampshire DES, retracting the formal letter, and then the decisions that we come to today be in the contents of the letter. And obviously the decisions that you come to today, I expect will be considerably less biased and unpleasant than the last one. So with that being said, I have some prepared notes. I'm not a public speaker, so please bear with me. Yes, my wife and I have been searching for retirement land for 10 years. We finally found the perfect piece of land in Enfield. It's a piece on George Hill Road on George Pond. It's 130 acres. And one of the things that we really liked is the large lot, seclusion, and waterfront. And, you know, we found everything that we want in Enfield. I understand that, you know, there's some sensitivity with this land. It's on abutting prime wetlands. I understand that, but I want to assure you that I'm a very serious conservationist. One example, I'm working with the University of Virginia on a project to restore the American chestnut, and we can talk about that afterwards if you're interested. We hired Pathways Consulting to do all the design work, and they understand all the New Hampshire requirements very well. So, you know, runoff, there will be no impact on the prime wetlands. I mean, that's why Scott is here. He's 25 years doing this. He's a professional or a civil engineer with a professional engineering license. He knows what he's doing. One important salient feature, if you'll look at the very first map that's included in your folder. That's this one here. So what we have here is in black was the original proposed driveway. Based on feedback from the New Hampshire DES, they were concerned that there was going to be 3 virgin stream crossings, meaning stream crossings that didn't exist already. So what we've done is we've moved the driveway. So on the property, there is a road that was constructed in the 60s. It's called Wood Road. And you can see where there's marks where the culverts already exist over the streams. So the point is that this is going to minimize the effect of constructing the driveway. So that's one important point. And yeah, I mean, the last point just to point out is, well, 2 points. It's one house on 130 acres, which that seems very low impact to me. Another one final point to bring to your attention. I understand from the previous meeting, there was lots of concern about the prime wetlands being built or designated in 1992. If you go to this here, this is basically a zoom map. It shows lot number 1, which has a street address of 30 George Hill Road.
I'm sorry, what map?
It's this photograph.
Thank you.
So it shows George Hill Road, and it shows at the northern tip of George Hill Road, you see a driveway that goes off George Hill. It's about 500 feet long, and it ends with a house. That house was built in 2006, well after the wetlands designation, and presumably it was built with all the same permits. So getting building permits near a wetlands or a prime wetlands has not been an obstacle in the past. I'm sorry? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It's 30 George Hill Road.
Correct.
Can we look at that?
I'm sorry?
No, I was talking to Whitney.
And then also included in there is the lots that show lot 1. Unfortunately, I printed on my printer, so the quality is not that clear, but it does show where lot 1 is and that it abuts George Hill or George Pond. So that's what I have for an introduction. Oh, sorry, one last thing. I keep saying one last thing.
Okay.
Reading all the minute notes from last time. One of you or your colleagues asked for a plan of the house, and that's included here so you can see what this thing looks like. So with that being said, I will turn it over to your questions, and I expect I will defer most of those to Scott for his expert advice or expert opinion.
Did you want to talk about anything before we?
The only thing I wanted to add was, So I'm sure you're aware of the process. The DES has sent us a request for more information. That was around February, based on the original application. That was after they received your comments as well. They reiterated a couple points that were raised in that letter on a general basis. I would say my overview of those concerns were mainly, they were most concerned about the 3 new stream crossings closest to the house, because those were considered headwater streams that, you know, if you impact those, you could have the highest risk of impacting George's Pond. Beyond that, a lot of the information they were looking for had to do with, they requested a functional assessment of the prime wetland areas based on what we're doing, and mainly because we're impacting the headwater streams. They were looking for more information on the wetlands around some of the other areas that weren't mapped. And they were looking for like 100-foot swath through the original driveway location. They also had questions about stormwater management, but they also understand that a lot of that is within the purview of the Alteration of Terrain Bureau, which we require a permit from them as well. I can get into that because I know the letter and some of the original concerns that were brought up had to do with stormwater and how we're going to be addressing that. That also covers, there's a shoreline permit that's required for the project. That gets into tree clearing, fertilizer, limits to fertilizer use, and all of that sort of thing. But essentially, you know, they reiterated some of the concerns that I think they felt were the most value to the application, and also relative to the rules. And we have not yet responded, mainly because they've more or less said with the 3 stream crossings as part of it, it did not represent the most or the least impacting alternative. So based on that and that direction, we considered coming in where we meet the Woods Road, essentially keeping the driveway on the eastern portion from George Hill to the existing Woods Road the same. And then from there, going the opposite direction. And we were able to find, beyond the wetlands that are within the Woods Road, we were able to find a corridor that's been thoroughly walked with our wetland scientist, and we didn't find any wetlands all the way down to the current house location. So the house location, the septic location being proposed would be exactly the same. The only difference is, instead of coming in from the east, we would be coming in from the south. So the closest wetland impacts on the plan that you have in front of you are essentially 500 feet away from the wetlands, from the prime wetlands. The impacts on the Woods Road, you can see there's sort of little double lines, the blue double lines. The 2 that are within the red driveway location are existing culverts. So they're culverts that are already there. They've been there. One of them is a metal culvert that I haven't seen that kind of material used for 40 or 50 years. It's a solid metal pipe culvert. Those 2 crossings would need to be upgraded somewhat because there's a little bit of erosion around them. They've been left, you know, the drainage has kind of been flowing through there. We also
Scott, if I
found,
may interject?
yeah, go ahead.
So getting back to this Woods Road, I have an easement on my deed from 1966 that says I need to maintain this road. So this road was built in the 60s prior to the 1969 wetland rules. I know that the state had some questions about me confirming the existence of this road. I found some old citizens of Enfield who will attest to seeing the road built in the 60s and that it has not moved.
And we were able to track it back on aerial photographs, at least back to the 1990s.
1998.
But before that, obviously, aerial photographs are hard to find. They're certainly not the level of accuracy that they have been more recently. So With that in mind, we felt that, this represents roughly 500 feet of the driveway being on an existing road corridor that's all cleared. There's a stone wall on one side of that existing woods road. There are some wetlands where you have, water and seeps that are coming off the hillside above it that come across the surface of the woods road. Because it's been driven on, it's been used prior to the Tabor zoning it, but it hasn't been, maintained as a road. In other words, it hasn't been resurfaced and a lot of extra material put on and that sort of thing. So those wetlands exist, and the DES has asked for us to provide some more information on those specific wetlands. The total wetland impacts for this plan would be similar to the previous plan. But again, it's moving everything 500 feet uphill. So we think that's a significant improvement, and as close as we can find to, minimizing the impacts, without altogether getting rid of the entire driveway and the house footprint. So.
But the house is still where it stands.
It is, yes, but I just do want to reiterate that right now the town and the DES do not have any wetland buffers that can be regulated. There's no such thing. There's only anecdotal, things and concerns for impacts based on proximity to the wetland, but there are no buffers. So we're not impacting any wetlands within that footprint. That house footprint is also the only area on the property within this whole area has any slopes less than 15%. So if you were to relocate this somewhere else, either along the existing or, our previously proposed driveway, you're dealing with much steeper slopes. So that footprint has to grow because you're basically trying to, carve it out of the side of the hill.
Just curious, has anyone walked the land? Anyone familiar with it?
No,
I'm very familiar with it from when I used to ride. Every day I rode down from George Hill down through to the Bog Road.
Okay.
And found a lot of the roads you're probably talking about.
Mhm.
And I also was, first of all, I appreciate you coming here to talk to us. I think, I think that's really considerate. And, there are a lot of roads in there. I also participated when our wildlife biologist came to do the National Resource Inventory. And that was the portion of land we paid a lot of attention to because of its proximity to Coal Pond and the animals, the wildlife and everything. So, yeah, and so yes, I am familiar with the land.
Okay.
I will.
Yeah, I mean, the
will
reason
say-
that I'm asking, I'm sorry. The reason I'm asking is, but to reiterate what Scott is saying is that, I have 1,500 feet of frontage on the pond, but this is the only real practical place to build on the pond. There's other spots where, yeah, I mean, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, the only other comment, and I will just say it quickly. That house footprint doesn't require a wetland permit. So if you could come in by helicopter, you could build there and there would be no restrictions whatsoever.
So,
It meets the DES requirements for wastewater. We would be able to handle the drainage and all the other things that would be required for that. So we're here because we have to cross wetlands to get there. So I think that's important to note. And to the extent that there is a concern for the prime wetland, that's already been reiterated by DES. So I don't think we need to batter that to death in terms of, those concerns, because the DES has already said, the onus is on the applicant to show them that we're not going to have significant impacts on the prime wetland by the crossings and the development that we're putting near these other wetlands. Because they're all interconnected in some
Yes,
way.
they
or
are.
another. Yes,
there's 8
that's-
miles of wetlands all
Fine,
connected.
And that is a fair question. So,
fine, pristine area.
Fine,
and that's, I
Really
think,
means a lot to the water of Enfield.
yes. And I'm sorry they call it George Pond. I'm sorry they call it George Wetland or something like that, because pond makes it look like it's a recreational, you know?
Which it's not.
No, put your dock in, put your boat in, you know, it's like,
But on the state land, there is a pond, there is a boat ramp and an access to the pond.
yes, there is, and the reason that being because the fish and game go in there and they have, nests for ducks. And they monitor the pond and the wildlife that's in there. And I think the only boats that go in there, other than little tiny aluminum boats, electrical motors.
Paddle boats.
Paddle boats and kayaks.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a point of fact, I mean, the pond is quite shallow and it's
Yeah.
relatively small, so as a practical matter, I can't see that you could put a gas-powered boat on there.
No, it
I mean,
wouldn't be
it's like in 3 minutes, it's like, oh, gotta turn around.
No, it would, you know, it would everything. I just, Shirley, you want to talk, because once I get talking, it's hard to be quiet. So I'm so
We
sorry.
each will have our opportunity.
So I just want to understand, this is where you're gonna put your house now?
No.
That's 30 George Hill Road.
Yes, that's
Okay,
where,
This is George Hill Road here. There's a picture.
that's,
driveway.
that's the driveway to the person who owns lot number 30.
Okay.
Or, well, it's lot number 1, the street address is 30 George Hill Road.
So where
and-
is it on?
So are you
here?
gonna be- Are you
If you want to show where, my proposal,
51 feet from the water? Is that where you're going? Because
may I come over?
I would love to. Yes, absolutely.
Oops.
I'm very open to
Does that
everything.
map- Is that the same map here?
Yeah, it's very similar to what's on here. So if you want to zoom out, we can show things.
Okay,
So. Zoom out a little more. There it is. Perfect. So this lot 6 is my lot, and the proposed house is going to be approximately where that line ends. This line means nothing as far as I can tell. So the driveway is going to go in this panhandle, basically serpentine around, go down like that. This is the lot that I'm mentioning on the aerial photograph.
okay.
So you can see the house is built approximately here, and it has all of this frontage on George Pond. So effectively, the only
So the
people,
hou- Excuse me, the house was built where the blue? Where's the house built?
well, somewhere around here.
The Google map.
The aerial,
It's
yeah.
pullable up.
You could also just turn on the aerial layer.
Now
I
go
think
up,
upper, yeah,
up top the 4 blocks.
Sorry, guys.
That other,
image, yeah.
and go to the Google.
Perfect. Sorry.
Right, so there you can, whoops, there you can see the house built right there. So just for fun, I know essentially nothing about these houses here. So essentially the people who have frontage on George Pond is this person, this, myself. I want to say one or both is the state. I'm pretty certain. I'm virtually certain both of those are owned by the state. So
So that is the Bog Road right here.
this is Bog Road.
Yeah.
And then this is George Hill Road.
Right,
And then it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see sort of that sort of cut in the woods.
uh-huh. They go,
That is that's the existing, what's called Wood Road.
and that comes out on the Bog Road?
Yes, yeah, pretty much. It splits right down here,
Yeah,
and then it goes across here, and then it's the parting line between these two lots, and then it goes along here, and there we go. Goes off here, and then it ends right here, and then it goes off there. And like I said, that was built sometime in the 60s, at least in 1966 or earlier.
that was before I moved up on George Hill, because the entrance on the Bog Road, that I think, if I'm correct, is what you call the Wood Road.
Correct.
That, there can be no, because the wetland is right there, and so I was part of a process that went to DES to hold a public hearing, and there can be no traffic entering from the bog road on that road. It is, I mean, to the wood, from the bog road, there can be no traffic with wheeled vehicle traffic on that road. I don't know how far up it goes, but the wetland during flood time, because that area floods terribly. And so that road is always flooded with the wetlands, with the water going into the wetland. And so,
Excuse me, I'm not certain we're talking about the same road, because I visited this, I mean, I've owned the lot for
I could be
17
mistaken.
years, and I've never ever seen that flooded. And I checked with the town manager, or not town manager, the Rod Taylor,
Yes,
prior to me buying the land, because I wanted to make sure that
of course.
I could actually build, and so I have a letter from him saying that, I can put in a driveway here, because this is
Yeah.
the principal way that I wanted to come in from.
Mhm.
But there was no objection to me going in from that end. The
The
only,
bog road,
correct. Now, the only difficulty is that if, slide up just a little bit. Yeah, so the entrance, this, actually,
Okay.
that's inaccurate.
Mhm.
This is the road,
Sorry.
this is the entrance to the road, and this is where the sand pit, where the previous guy used to ride dirt bikes. But the property is actually right down the center of that bog road. So it's like, I own half the road, he owns half the road. So one of the principal reasons why I had no interest in building a driveway from here is just dealing with the legal complication of having half my driveway being
of course.
on someone
that could
else's
be
land.
counted. Now, is this the road that's gated?
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, the way to find it is, here is the, I don't know what the name of the brook is, but there's a brook that crosses Bog Road here, and then it goes into the pond here. And then, so, yeah, pretty much from here to here is 4-ish, 5-ish hundred feet, something like that.
I couldn't say, but
The scale right there.
But we're not going in that way, so.
So,
no.
so
Thank you.
How far off the lake is 30 George Hill Road? How far is it from the water, the house?
That's a little bit hard to say, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous, but can we slide it down?
From the waterfront, as
The
compared
water.
to your 60, 70 feet that your house is planned to be from the water.
We can slide it down just a little bit more.
This way or
No, this-
this way? Okay.
Yep, keep going. There we go. So the thing that's difficult is that right here, it's really quite precipitous. So there's virtually not quite a vertical drop off, but it's 25 feet. And then you get, for George Hill or George Pond, deep water. And then you can see all this area here
Swamp.
is swampy
Yeah, I
stuff. So his house is about 2 digits. So
There's a measure tool.
150 feet, 200 feet, something like that,
From the swamp.
from the edge of the swamp.
But that's all part of the prime wetlands.
Yes.
Just then like here to.
Yeah, about
250 feet. I mean, that's, that's not bad. What's the elevation of that? What's the land looks fairly dry. Look at the picture of the house.
Yeah,
yeah, that's.
It looks like it's got some elevation.
See, that's going on.
without question, there is some elevation from the building on lot 1 to the pond,
Okay.
but it's way smaller than where I'm going to build.
Okay.
I'm guessing, well, I mean, whoever's running the show on the map, you can turn on the contours.
Yeah.
And we can count the contours, but,
Okay.
anyway,
Ed, you thought it was about 200 feet. Ed, you thought it was about 200 feet.
200,
From the
250.
Yeah.
From the edge of the wetland on their Google
About
Maps.
200,
yeah,
okay.
about 200.
And that was
Okay.
probably with help from DES, because 250 feet would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
I mean, for pristine or for sensitive areas that, it's recommended that it could be a lot longer, it could be a lot bigger. And it's all kind of depending upon the situation in the town and what they decide they wanna have.
Mhm.
If they're concerned about the wetland being really an important wetland for the quality of the town's water, then the town can say it could be 1,000 feet.
And see, there was a period, actually.
Yeah, but
there
it
was a-
hasn't.
I know, but the town could say that.
but there was
They
a-
have every right based on what the recommendations come from the state to do that. And I think that's my point, is
And there
that
was
this is a very important piece of product.
yes.
There was a period of time too when these proposals did not get passed on to the Conservation Commission for their
Yeah.
consideration.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That they
So-
were decided just by the planning board.
And, I mean, the history of what people have done to land is pretty plain to see. How we've mucked things up pretty badly in a lot of places. So our concern as the Conservation Commission is just the quality of the water that we drink every day. So, that's the way we feel, and we're
Yep.
pretty passionate about it.
I understand. Like I said, I completely understand your concern.
So we open the door, we allow one or two of the things, and the next thing you know, you've opened this big door for more things that lead to development and
Well, I mean, one thing that I can, help, allay some of your concerns is if you look on here, there are 3 building lots on the pond that are available. Well, they're not building lots. There's 2 building lots. There's mine and the other guys. So I'm taking 130 acres off the development table.
the other piece was just sold to someone that we have no knowledge of.
From Utah?
Yeah, he bought it. We have no idea what his plans are. But
Yeah, he wants to put a driveway into the bog
Yeah.
road.
Well, let's put it this way. I'd like to find out who this person is.
I don't know.
I mean, I spoke with Rob Maltz, who used to own the land. And he had given me the right of first refusal to buy this land, and he didn't. So it goes. The reason that I have the concern is the lot number 7, Maltz's former property. I can just show you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Does that go all
Yeah,
along?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so originally 7 and 6 and a chunk of this was all owned by this Barry Dashner, who was trying to develop the land in 2007, 2008. And he literally skipped town when the real estate bubble went bust. So various people, he bought it out of real estate. What the hell am I thinking of? When you go out of broke business.
Yeah, yeah.
Foreclosure.
So, thank you. So another realtor bought this, and then I bought it from him in 2017.
Did
go
they inform you of what a fragile piece of land that was? Ecosystem?
No one informed me of anything special, but like I said, I tied off with Rod Taylor. So I mean, I did all the due diligence that I could, checking with the town to make sure that I could build on the lot, and there were no restrictions, no impediments, no nothing. And
That's,
Well, Dashner was the
There
one
are
that
no
took the court.
building,
yeah.
there are nothing in the town regulations that prevents him from building there. We're here because we have to cross wetlands to get there. And that is the current state of your regulations. And I don't think you can look at this solely as this is going to set a precedence, because the precedence has already been set. There is a homeowner that has put a house on his property.
It's not the same though, and that doesn't make it right.
Well, it doesn't make it right, but it also, how can you say that that is okay and this is not?
But it's not
okay?
the same.
It's right on, the reason there's no buffer to build away from the wetlands, and I'll tell you what happened. We had a big buffer. The state had a big buffer. Then the state decided each municipality would set their own buffer. The town was sent a letter. We never got a copy. Everybody forgot about it. So all of a sudden is that correct? there's no buffer. We just found out about this. So you can see why we were a little upset, because if we had the knowledge that this was going on, we certainly would have got a warrant going for town meeting, and we would have had a big buffer.
And what the state is hoping is that the towns will create their own
Yes.
buffer and even larger than what the 100 feet.
Was I
And,
mistaken?
No,
yeah.
I just said, we're getting off subject. and
Yes,
I just
I-
wanted
But I
to
mean,
remind the
what my
commission
point-
and Peter
I
Faber and
understand.
them that the Conservation Commission's job is to look at this dredge and fill permit, to look at the project and report any concerns they may have to
Correct.
DES. The
That's correct.
DES takes that.
Correct. I
And does
understand
their
that.
due diligence.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. Thank
Maybe
you.
we should walk it.
I mean, we can go through some of the concerns that were in the letter. We can talk through this, but I mean, that's really the point here, is to
Yep,
relay the
I agree.
concern. So if you have
I
a
agree.
concern that it's too close to the water, you relay that concern to
Yeah.
DES. They,
We
according
can't
to what
because
we've
there's
had, they
no,
don't have a regulation to
that's right.
regulate that, but you can still express that concern.
And I think we did. I think we
I
did
think
that,
so.
and that's kind of the reason why we're here. You know, we want to validate our concerns, so.
We
Yeah,
did
I
get
feel
on,
that
we did get
we
on.
carefully, and if you've read the minutes of January 25th, you can see we carefully considered every aspect. And we are not, we're just an advisory committee. And it's really our obligation to convey any concerns we have to DES. And it's between you and DES at that point.
I fully understand that. And I mean, let's put it this way. I would be fantastically pleased. I would be happy beyond belief if it's my understanding from Scott that you can have a vote and then you can basically vote to support the project or oppose the project. I would really hope that you would vote in favor of the project, simply because it's like, to put it sort of crudely, it's your least worst option. So
They don't really vote to
Yeah.
support or not support a project. They
Make recommendations.
specifically make recommendations to DES where they have
That's right.
concerns.
okay,
If they
so
don't have concerns and they support it, they don't report to DES. That's-
but-
DES will look at that information that we convey to them,
okay,
and they will address and parse it in their purview. And they will be very fair. I've known
They
the
will.
things that DES has done for most of my adult life. And they don't want to keep you building your house. They just want to guide you to do it the best way to protect that property.
I
And it's so
completely
important.
understand. But like I said at the outset, the letter that Tice wrote absolutely needs to be retracted.
I
It is,
don't
it is-
understand that.
it-
Yeah, I disagree
it-
too.
I
I
don't
disagree.
understand.
Excuse me.
We all approved of him sending that letter. I don't see where you feel it was biased. I really don't.
I think there's a
If you
big
want, we can deep
discrepancy.
dive into this. There are numerous outright fallacies in that letter.
Well, DES will recognize those. They
Absolutely.
will recognize them. They have been dealing with it.
But I'm just asking you, just from a personal integrity point of view, do you support the idea that you people write a letter to the DES that is presented to you as being factually wrong?
Do we need to go through every single point? I particularly don't want to, based on what Ed said. I don't want to.
I take
Okay,
insult
You're
to
saying it's
saying
not
that,
true, or it doesn't matter.
that
That's
DES
not
will
opinion. You don't
decide.
need to go there.
I
No.
think DES would have contacted us. If they thought we were out of line, we would have.
Absolutely, they are not shy.
We would have heard about it.
I mean,
Like I said,
I think Peter's biggest concern is that if you read through the minutes from that meeting and the way that things were addressed in that meeting, there's a big discrepancy between that and the way that the letter was written. And the concerns, and then the level of presumptuousness in some of the comments that were portrayed. And that's the biggest concern, and I think that's why Peter is asking for a redo, because he feels that that did some damage to the project and, you know, has put us down a path that we didn't expect to have to go on.
Well, we all agreed that we approved the letter, that we accepted what he said, and we can't retract our statements,
You can certainly retract your statement.
not if we don't want to.
That is absolutely true. We can deep dive in the letter if you want. I can clearly illustrate things that are factually erroneous. And
I think you should send your complaints to DES and they, because
They'll address them.
yeah,
okay,
I would, if I had known this was gonna be, I would done more research on the RSA's. I just thought we were here to approve the letter that we had read and said we thought it was great and got mail. I feel I'm unprepared to have a good discussion with you, and maybe you could change my mind, but I don't feel secure in what knowledge I have right now to draw from.
so if you want, I have all sorts of documentation here. We can do a deep dive on the letter tonight. We can do it tomorrow. I mean, some other time, if you wish. But I really must insist that you people retract the letter to the DES. And I'm really, really reluctant to go here, but I can read a letter from my attorney if you'd like. I have grounds for suing Dr. Tice and the town.
Won't be the first time.
So we're not prepared to go into that right now. Okay, we're not.
We need to talk to our
No.
attorney. We're not lawyers.
You know,
We're volunteers
that's
on a
looking out
commission,
for the town.
following what we know about what is on the land and what's going to be put on the land. We were asked to make a decision, and we have. But like we say, we're just volunteers.
And we're making a recommendation, and as of right
And-
now, we're not changing, but if you're gonna
Listen,
present us,
no,
then we'll take some time to look it over, but we're not prepared to do anything like
But
that.
we're also volunteers with many years
Yeah.
of experience. If you put the experience of all our years together,
So
we've looked at a lot of proposals and
I'm perfectly happy with you making a recommendation, however you people agree that you think you'd like to do to the state. All I'm asking is that you draft a new letter that is honest and is fair and is not filled with defamatory statements and outright lies. I'm not asking, that's all. You can write any letter you want, as long as the first line basically says, we retract the first letter.
would never have approved it.
We are not
If
prepared.
we felt there was anything in there that was defamatory or untrue.
Okay, so
And
then I guess the question is, what are the next steps?
You have to just vote on the letter as it is, so I guess.
I
we can't
think
move
that
any
was
further
the
right
issue
now.
was that.
Can we take this in a little different direction that might be meaningful? So you've been presented with a new layout.
Yes,
Does that move,
I think
address, minimize, change any of the concerns that you have?
this is
or that would
moved
be
past
addressed.
us. You should be presenting this to DES. This.
Yeah, if you don't want to comment on it, that's fine. I was just
No, I
asking
think,
the
yeah, that's a
question.
step. But my viewpoint in terms of, being a Conservation Commission member and looking at the guidelines that I'm given to what we should do, that whole area should be left alone. And I'm sorry, that should be left alone. You shouldn't be putting houses there. You shouldn't. There's
So,
no place for a house in that whole wetlands, based on the guidelines I've read in the state of New Hampshire, okay? Those are guidelines, those aren't rules, those are guidelines. And we haven't made rules yet in the town, so we're kind of stuck there. But I still have my principles, and that's what I'm living with, okay? House shouldn't be there, and that's the way I feel.
okay. So, as I alluded to, I understand there's the idea that you'd like this land to remain in its pristine state as it is right now. I can promise you that will not happen. The best outcome is I can build my one house on the pond.
But you can trust DES to help you.
Absolutely.
If
My
DES
opinion will be my opinion, and that's
No.
fine.
but the
That-
DES, if DES thinks that your engineers
Got it right? Do it.
They may not, they haven't made a decision yet.
Yeah.
How do you know you won't go home and find a letter saying you have met our
So,
approval?
no,
And
Trust them.
if you just do these three things,
Yeah.
you're fine. You've seen letters like
Yeah.
that come through, right?
so I'm flummoxed. I do not understand why it's so difficult to retract a letter that is demonstrably wrong. And then you can compose a letter to your satisfaction that addresses your concerns and is factually accurate and fair to me. That's all I'm asking.
And what they're saying is to kind of play the middleman here is, you know, they did get a copy of the letter before it was sent, and they agreed with it before it was sent.
We discussed each
Yeah.
issue in depth.
All right, so
They didn't
fine.
vote on it.
Let me
but
just
they
give one
don't have to
example.
vote.
Yeah, so it's not a voted.
All right, so I want a deep dive, but let me just give you one example.
Okay.
Example C. All right, there's one. There's one, there's two, and here's three.
Is this from the letter? Or
We can get you a copy of it.
Oh, thank you.
So on page 3 of Dr. Tice's letter, it says, there is at least one endangered species whose habitat is reported to be on Enfield along Bog Road. Go to this website. Now, if you actually go to this particular website, it identifies this bat. And let's just take this one step at a time. So the very first page, it identifies this bat species. And then flip it over. Then on the next page, there's a site highlighted in red. For consultation needs do not use only this current map, but please use IPAC. If you go to IPAC, you draw a map. Now I put that perimeter so you see that it entirely covers Bog Road, the land all the way up to George Hill Road, and covers the entirety of George Pond, at least the majority where my house is. And in some, it's almost 500 acres. Now, if you go over to the last page, critical habitat. There are no critical habitat in this location. So Dr. Tice makes a statement in the letter to the state that says there's habitat for this bat. This tool that you can explain extensively, it says there are no habitat for this bat on this entire area. And I can go on with many other factually erroneous statements.
His statement is, it's reported there are bats, okay? There are plenty of bats. I mean, he's not
No,
saying
no,
there is,
he's-
he's saying there's reported that there are bats.
This
There-
is,
there's-
this is another thing, give this information to DES.
Yeah,
And
it's not
They
like,
have a
You're really-
website that lists
That's
all
who you
the
should be giving this to.
species and where they're located. I went to it myself.
Yeah.
Because someone told me about something that was out on Methodist Hill. And so
Yeah.
they told me to go to this website. And they used to be there, but they're not now. The state redefined the areas. So,
I mean, it's reported. I mean, this is not something that the DES won't be blind to. I mean, it's us
They won't.
they
reporting
can
what
just
we've
bring it
seen,
up on their
or we
website.
thought we've
There
seen,
isn't
or
anything
some,
that they won't look at that's in that letter. And
I mean,
as I say, if they think that this letter is untruthful and biased, you better believe we're gonna hear about it.
Yeah.
And we haven't heard anything,
I'm bringing it to your attention right now.
but I mean from DES, that we should be hearing from DES. They have had lots of opportunity to look at this information. And they're the people that you should be working with. We've done the part that we were supposed to do, is convey our concerns.
So like I said, I'm working on a multi-pronged approach. I think it would be fair, you can attest to this, that the state has been less than helpful on this project. And I suspect it's largely because they have received such a venomous letter from Dr. Tice and the Conservation Commission. That's why I'm asking this be retracted. And again, to get back to the lawyer statement, if you have knowingly been brought to your attention that there are factually, demonstrably incorrect statements and you refuse to correct them, you are exposing the town and Dr. Tice and perhaps yourselves, I can't speak to that,
Oh,
to,
Yeah, we don't need to threaten.
Yeah.
no,
but
volunteers, we can't be sued. We're volunteers.
But I would
so,
welcome the legal opinions on that.
Absolutely.
I believe that we are volunteers, but we care very much about Enfield and its natural resources and how it affects the economy too. But what other people care about it. But we're doing our very best we're not telling people what to do, but we're telling, when there's a proposal, we have the opportunity to convey our concerns.
And that's what
And
we
that's
do.
what we're obliged to do. We would be
It's our job.
remiss if we didn't.
I fully understand and I support your position on stating your feelings from a conservation perspective. I think we're sort of chasing the circle around
I
the
think so,
squirrel
too.
around the tree. But to end on one last point, one last reconsideration, putting one house on George Pond is it's really your best option. Because alternatively, if I can't build there, the land is valueless to me.
They're not making that decision.
No,
That's not their decision to make.
No.
Their job is to say, someone proposed a house here.
yes,
I'm concerned it's too close. I mean, I can go through the letter.
yes, I understand.
I'm concerned it's too close to the wetland. We're concerned about the septic system. Can you take a closer look at that? We're concerned with the road. I mean, those are the things I had, that there's wildlife habitat there that may be sensitive. I can go through some more, but that's their job. And then it's DES's job to take their concerns and work with you and your engineers to say, have these items been addressed? Do we, as the state DES, feel that these are an issue? If they haven't addressed some of these points with you, then they may not feel that they're an issue. They read them and they just passed on them. It sounds to me, and I don't know if they're gonna bring anything up, that the road is the issue that they had, the driveway. And you're working through that. I don't know if there's any other issues out there, but from what I've heard, that sounds like it's the major concern at this point.
And see, they will work with you through that. They will make it possible for you to do in a way that's least harming the environment, to do what you'd like to do.
I hear what you're saying.
I can see why you want to build down there because it's beautiful. And there's so much to see, and the wildlife and the solitude and the peace. And I think if DES's main concern is the driveway, then, and you have your engineer working on it, and you seem to have a grasp on what needs to be done with the culverts and stuff.
There we are.
Yeah.
And she said, I do appreciate, at least myself as a town manager, seeing again the work you've done on the driveway and the changes you've made there. And
And we're glad that where you didn't have the opportunity to be at that first meeting that we had this meeting.
Yep.
And I wish we wish you well.
We do. And whatever DES decides, we're 100% in back of them. So,
And you've heard where we feel. I mean, we have people too. We have feelings and, we have concerns. So, I'm glad you listened to me. Maybe I'm a little more passionate than some, but that's my opinion too. But I'm still here to do a job. And I'm a volunteer.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
I'm
And I
glad,
appreciate hearing your voice too. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
important,
and I'm glad you listened to us.
All right, well, I'm sorry we couldn't have come to a more mutually acceptable conclusion, but there we are.
Do we need to make a motion now or?
I don't think so. If you guys wanna make a motion to support the letter as written, you can. If you wanna take time to read the letter again and
I've read it many times.
do that,
Mhm.
but it was sent to you
With your
when it was
concerns.
written.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's up to you. What do you think, Shirley? I mean, we're gonna stay we're together. We
Yeah.
believe what we believe. You believe what you believe, and that's fine. The DES will weigh in and
Oh,
decide.
yeah,
Why I'm saying, do we need to make a motion is because when we discussed it before, we talked and we agreed with.
We didn't make
to
a
make a
motion.
motion, so I don't want to, to say that we didn't.
Yeah, well, and it wasn't said in the minutes that you would. There was no time frame. You were under a tight time frame from DES at the time. You didn't have time to come back to a meeting and do that. It was said it would be distributed to the Conservation Commission and then delivered to DES, but if you guys would like to make a motion to stand behind it, you can. Or you can make a motion to withdraw it, whichever way you guys wanted to go, you could do that tonight.
I make a motion that we accept Dr. Tice's recommendations to DES on the table property be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right,
Okay,
thank you.
I took some of these, is that all right? There were a bunch of them stuck on the door. Can I take one? Take all these. I can only tell when my neighbors put theirs out. This is wonderful. This is wonderful. Thank
To
you.
my house, I can tell if the bear comes out that morning.
I might get the beer come here, so I go every Wednesday and every Saturday. But the recycled stuff, I take it, yeah. These are a little sneaky that way. Thank you.
Appreciate
And I
the
do
time.
feel-
Thank you.
Well-
Nice to meet you all.
And I do think you'll find out it'll turn out so that you're happy.
we'll find out. I haven't gotten the slightest indication of that from the state so far.
I think anything with the prime wetland, they try to move fast on that, so everybody knows what's going on. So,
A motion to
adjourn, I guess.
Yes. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll second it. All
All
those
in
in
favor?
favor? Aye.
I think we're trying to really run a tight ship here.
7:59.
What's it called? Murphy? No, what's the law,
Oh,
you know what I mean, the one, how to run a meeting.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Thank you very much.